James W., a patron of Sly Flourish, asks, what is your advice for writing up a campaign pitches document? I think that writing up a campaign one-pager is a really important process of building our campaign and particularly of running our session 0 for a campaign. So this idea of building a campaign pitches document goes right hand in hand with how you run your session 0. You can find some Sly Flourish articles and videos linked in the show notes below to see both of these topics and see how they interrelate. I've written up a bunch of one-page campaign documents for various campaigns that I've run over the past few years. And here's a few examples. I have an example for Descent into Avernus. I have another one that I wrote for Ghosts of Saltmarsh. I have one that I wrote for a custom Eberron campaign I ran called The Second Mourning. And I have one for a recent game of Rime of the Frostmaiden. You can see links to each one of these campaign guides below, and that gives you good examples of the kind of campaign guides that I recommend. But we're going to dive into the details right now. I think it's really important that we keep the campaign summary to one page. Any more than one page and we risk that our players aren't going to read it. But one page, that's enough that they can absorb it all and remember it and understand it. Our players are busy, and they might not be into the campaign as much as we are. So even if we have 10, 12, 14 pages of content, we really can't expect the players are going to read more than one page. It also helps us as a DM really focus down on what's important for this campaign. What are the things that absolutely have to be on this sheet? What are the things about this campaign we absolutely need to make sure the players understand? That's what we put down in the sheet. So can it go longer than a page? It can, but I really wouldn't recommend it. I think getting everything down to one page really works. And I've run multi-year campaigns where the campaign guide was a single page. So the first thing that I think a campaign guide needs is a good pitch. What is it about this campaign that's going to draw your players into the fiction? What makes this particular campaign interesting to play? A lot of times you can summarize the campaign down to a single sentence, like prevent the cult of Tiamat from bringing the Queen of Dragons back to the Sword Coast, or help the people of Ten Towns survive the endless night. There can be one sort of sentence that encapsulates all of the things that you need to do in that particular campaign. For our campaign one-pager, we can expand this a little bit into 2 or 3 sentences. But it should really be no longer than a single paragraph. And that paragraph should help bring the imagination of the players into the world that we're planning to share with them. The next thing I like to do is have a set of truths for this campaign. What are the 6 things that set this campaign apart from all of the other different campaigns that the players may have played, or all of the other worlds that they may be familiar with? It doesn't always have to be 6. Shorter campaigns can have 2 or 3. My Rime of the Frostmaiden game has 5. But you probably don't want to have more than 6. More than 6 and it's getting too detailed. You probably want to have just what are the main 6 things that set this campaign apart. And it can be things like why the world is the way it is. Is the world round or flat? Is it taking place in another plane of existence? Are there portals that exist all over the place? So there are lots of different truths that can exist for this campaign. A couple criteria for these truths are that they are things the players are going to know. The players are going to know these things and the characters are going to know these things. These aren't secrets and clues. These are things that we want the players to know and we want the characters to know because it's what sets this campaign apart, and they are truths that the players can use to help build the characters around the campaign's theme. Now, we can expand on the background of this campaign, often describing where the characters are going to be in this campaign. Where are they starting out? What are some of the themes that exist around those characters? These are general ideas that the players can use to help build the kind of characters that they want. Another thing we can add to our one-page guide are factions and patrons. And in this case, we probably want to offer up about 3 of them and let the players decide which one of the 3 factions or patrons they want to select. The advantage of factions and patrons is it gives a way for us to bring all of the characters together around a single group or a single person, and gives them a single person that they can get their initial quests from, so they're already fired off into the campaign. It's a way of avoiding you're 5 guys in a bar and there's a quest up on a board nearby. That can work, but it can also get pretty old. Better is you all work for the local hunter who's trying to find the murderer of 10 Towns. Ideally, all of the characters are built around this single faction or single patron. And during your session 0, that's when, as a group, they get to decide which one they want to initially follow. Later on in the campaign, they're probably not going to be tied too much to this faction or this patron. By that point, they'll have their own drivers. But it can really help out in your initial adventures to have a single point of contact and a single driver for the adventures that they're going on. Offering 3 patrons or factions that they can select from lets the players have some agency over the campaign. It means that you can't control it too much, and that the players are going to have some options about what kind of patron or what kind of faction they want to follow. Our one-page campaign summary should also include some character creation guides. What sources are allowed for generating characters? How do you generate your ability scores? What are any other house rules that you might have? And what kinds of skills or character builds do you think are really going to have fun in this campaign? This is a good way of making sure that you're bounding character creation so that the players are building characters that are really going to have a good time in this particular adventure. Most importantly, you want to have a line in here that describes the key bond between them and the story of the world. I think this is absolutely critical for any campaign. This key line ties the characters together and ties them to the theme of the adventure. For example, in our Rime of the Frostmaiden game, it was, your character has joined with your companions to help the people of 10 towns survive the icy dangers in the endless night. Right? This tells them exactly what their drive is in this game, and it helps prevent problems of characters being built that don't want to hang out with other characters or that don't really care about the theme of the adventure. This one ensures that if this bond is built into every character, all of them are going to want to work together to solve the theme of the campaign. Another example of this is in my Eberron the Second Mourning campaign, in which I say, you seek to travel with your band of companions in cooperation to prevent the second mourning. Very clear guidelines about how their character is tied into the rest of this campaign. This can seem heavy-handed, and it seems like you're limiting or restricting characters in a way. But really what you're doing is talking to your players about the kinds of characters that are going to have the most fun in this campaign. The last thing I'll mention are safety tools. I think it's useful to list out the safety tools that this particular campaign is going to have and describe any of potentially disturbing themes that the campaign might have, so that during your session 0, you can have conversations with the rest of the players about what kind of content is fine to have in the campaign, and what kind of content you probably want to have off in the distance, and what kind of content is not available at all. You can list up front lines and veils that exist already, particularly your own lines and veils, and then also make sure to add in any new content that players want to have as either a hard line that they don't want to have in there, or as something they'd rather have happen off screen. Update the guide and then resend it out to everybody so everybody else is aware of those changes to the lines and veils. And lastly, you can describe any other safety tools you have. I have one called Let's Pause for a Minute. Anytime anybody says, let's pause for a minute, that's the time to break character, all the conversations stop, and we have a chance to ask the player who brought it up, do they have a change that they need to make for the campaign so that it's fun for everybody else? Or do they just have a question about the direction that a campaign is going? The DM can do it. Any of the players can do it. It's a real easy way to sort of pause the game for a second, make sure everything's cool, and then go back into character and enjoy the game again. So listing out those safety tools in a campaign one-pager, I think, is also very important. So that summarizes all of the content that exists inside the one-page campaign guides that I put together. You'll be able to see from the examples below that they're all tailored around the individual campaign, and it's evolved as I've been running different campaigns. So it's not a one-size-fits-all template. You can actually design this one page however you want to fit the kind of campaign that you're building. But there's probably a few key things you can put in there that will help make sure that the campaign runs smoothly. One of the rewards that you get as a patron of Sly Flourish is the word template that you can use for your own use to generate a one-page summary for you and your players. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you can subscribe to the Sly Flourish newsletter, subscribe to my videos on YouTube, support me directly on Patreon, or pick up any of my books. Thank you very much and have a great day.